Hey y'all, today is March 25th and we are doing a little mini lesson on the probability of events that are not equally likely. So let's get started with number one. We're looking at this unequal spinner right here. So it says the circular spinner is spun once. Write each of the probabilities as a fraction in simplest form. Now you notice it's very, very clear that this section for blue is much larger than this section for pink. So our spinner has sections that are not equal, so we are going to make it have equal sections. So I'm going to get a line tool out and I'm going to divide it. So first I'm going to divide it here. So I'll just continue that line. And then we've got this line here, dividing it. So that's now 4 equal sections, right? But I see this line right here divides that section into 2 sections. So I need a line dividing each section into 2 sections. So I'll put one here, one right here, and one right here. It might not be exactly perfect, but what we've done is we've created equal sections, equal-ish for our work today. So how many sections are there now? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 equal sections. So now we can find our probabilities. So for A, the probability of red, spinning the spinner and it landing on red. Well, there's 2 sections, so there's 2 favorable outcomes out of 8 total outcomes. 2 8s. Does that fraction reduce? Yes, 2 goes into both of those numbers, so 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So 1/4 is my answer. Okay, let's look at B, the probability of pink. So I see pink is just 1 section out of 8 total, so it's 1/8. Now, does that fraction reduce? No, it does not, so that is my answer as a fraction in simplest form. C, probability of not green. Now, on your notes today and on your homework, you're going to see this written as the probability of not green. So it uses this little like tilde symbol right there. But just know that that's also another way to write not in probability notation, okay? Now, the probability of not green, well, that's anything but the green sections. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections that are not green. So we have 6 favorable outcomes out of 8 total outcomes. Does that fraction reduce? Well, yeah, 2 goes into both of those numbers. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So we get 3/4 as our answer. Okay, let's look at D, the probability of blue. Well, when we look at blue, I've got 1, 2, 3 sections that are blue. So 3 favorable outcomes out of 8 total outcomes. Does that reduce? Nope, it does not. So that is my answer as a fraction in simplest form. E, the probability of not blue. So I'm counting all the sections that are not blue. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are not blue. So 5 favorable outcomes out of 8 total outcomes. Does that fraction reduce? It does not. So that is my answer as a fraction in simplest form. And then lastly, F, probability of pink or blue. So we've got pink or blue that are favorable outcomes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So 4 sections out of 8 total sections. So 4 favorable outcomes out of 8 total outcomes. Does that fraction reduce? It sure does. So 4 goes into both of those numbers. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So it reduces to 1/2. Okay, now let's look at number 2. A dart is thrown at the square dartboard. Write each of the probabilities as a fraction in simplest form. Well, first of all, to help me see what I'm doing, I'm actually going to kind of color code this. So I'm going to make this A section be this kind of orangey color. And then I'll make, let's do B is this purple color. And let's do a green color for D. And let's maybe do a blue color for E. And maybe a red color for C. And then we'll do kind of this gold color for F. And this will just kind of help me see a little bit better where my sections are after I divide this up. Because remember, I'm going to take my line tool and divide this up into equal sections. So first, I'm going to divide it so I have 4 equal sections. So we see a section here that's 1/4, that's 1/4, that's 1/4, and that's 1/4. So right now we've got 4 equal sections, right? Oops, let's change that back to the line tool. Okay, so now see how I've got these like really small sections? I need all of my sections to have those 4 really small sections. So we'll divide like so, and like so. And then we'll divide like so, kind of in the middle. And if it's not perfect, it's okay, because we kind of get the gist. We know that we have 4 equal sections in each 1/4 square, okay? So that works for me. And now I want to know how many total squares I have. Well, there's 1, oops. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I have 16 total sections, right? And they're of equal size now. So that helps me figure out my probabilities. So for A, the probability of A, well, remember A is that big orange section right here. So how many sections is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 of the 16, does that reduce? Well, 8 goes into both of those numbers. 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 16 divided by 8 is 2. So 1/2 is my answer. So B, the probability of not F. Remember, on your notes and homework, you would see this written as the probability of not F, where we use that little squiggly tilde line to mean not. 1 second. Okay, so probability of not F. I'm counting all the squares that are not F. And F is that kind of gold section in that bottom corner. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 favorable outcomes out of 16 total outcomes. Well, what number goes into both of those? Well, 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 16 divided by 4 is 4. So 3/4 is my answer. Okay, C, the probability of D. Well, when we look closely, D is just that one square out of 16 total squares. So there is 1 favorable outcome out of 16 total outcomes. Does that fraction reduce? It does not. So that is my answer as a fraction in simplest form. For D, we have the probability of B or C. Well, B or C is 2 sections right here and right here. So that's 2 squares out of 16 total squares. So we have 2 favorable outcomes out of 16 total outcomes. Does that reduce? Well, 2 goes into both of those numbers. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. So 1/8 is my answer. Now E, the probability of A and D. Well, if we're throwing a dart, it's not going to land on both A and D. So that word "and" is tricky. So 0 is our answer. It's kind of like that question on your quiz about the jelly bean. Can you get a pink jelly bean and a red jelly bean at the same time? No, because if you're just drawing one jelly bean, you're going to get one color. So a dart cannot land on both A and D if thrown one time. Okay, so the probability right there is 0. Now lastly, F, the probability of A or F. Well, how many squares is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 of the 16 squares. So that means 12 favorable outcomes out of 16 total outcomes. Does that reduce? It sure does. 4 goes into both of those. 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 16 divided by 4 is 4. So that is the end of our little mini lesson on probability of events that are not equally likely.